I think one of the most important qualities of a leader is emotional intelligence. And the first step of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So it was really challenging for me to be a great leader in work and in my family if I had a lack of self-awareness, but also I had zero empathy. I had no empathy for the way people were feeling because I wasn't allowing myself to feel those emotions. So how could I relate? We don't all have the same life, the same background, or have the same experiences, but we feel the same emotions. We all know what stress and fear and doubt and judgment and anxiety feel like. So that's what relates us as human beings. So we can be empathetic and compassionate to everybody because everybody goes and feels those things. Welcome back to Over Dinner. I'm your host, Jarrod Sammet. Thank you for joining another solo episode. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe, link, comment, share. Nikki and I are really passionate about just spreading the word of the human experience and really trying to show others that they're not alone, that the experience and challenges and things we go through in life, that's what connects us all, is all these ups and downs that we all go through and experience together. So the more we can share, the more that we can all feel that. So in this episode, I kind of want to carry on from the previous episode where I talked a lot about entering into my personal journey of growth and development, of taking ownership and knowing that I had to do the work in order for my outside experiences and for the way I was seeing the world to change. But I do want to talk a little bit about, because as I said in the previous episode, this block in emotions really challenged me, especially the negative ones. I didn't like the feeling of those. I didn't understand them. I didn't know how to deal with them. So I pushed all of them away. And that actually impacted other areas of my life. I actually wrote this article. Actually, the first article I posted on LinkedIn, which is called Every Day is a Good Day. That's true and not true. We'll talk about it. But the essence of it was the thought of positivity is a strategy. We're hearing all these words about be positive, be optimistic, things will get better, all that. And I really live that way. And it helped me, but it also hurt a lot of things in my life, especially in my relationship with my friends and also being a leader of people. Because the negative emotions really, really challenged me, people would come to me with fear, stress, anxiety, whether that was my wife, Nikki, my friends, and even my people in my charge. I was that toxic positivity leader. For those unfamiliar with toxic positivity, it's essentially just spinning everything to the positive side of it. It's not allowing the space for someone to feel or to feel it yourself, but just as soon as that negative experience or emotion comes on, you just flip it and show how it's actually a positive thing. And so everything's positive. And that was me. And you can imagine being in my life in any relationship that I am, how that would impact me and impact the people, most importantly. Two things really happened when I was showing up that way. For instance, Nikki coming to me anxious about something, having some stress, and wouldn't ask her questions, was not curious. All I would do is go, but look at this, look on the other side of that. But look at it, it's going to be a good thing too. So that would just shut her down. There's nowhere to go in that conversation. And I'm essentially telling her it's not okay to feel those emotions, that you have to look on the other side. There's a bright side to everything. And what in essence that happened is she just didn't want to come to me. She did not want to come to me when she was feeling these emotions. And she would even doubt herself and thought, she would have thoughts of, I'm crazy. Jarrod doesn't think this way. I'm the crazy one. Like, I have all these thoughts coming. I must be totally nuts. And also, when you think about in the workplace, leading a sales team, them coming to me with challenges and fears and anxieties and not knowing what to do and all that stuff. And as a leader, flipping it as fast as I humanly could to have them see the positive side of it. And that really hurt me too, especially when your people aren't coming to you anymore. Same thing happened. They didn't think they could have a bad day or feel those emotions because Jarrod doesn't. Jarrod always has it together. He's always positive. And then it got to a point where they just weren't surfacing anything, and living in those emotions by themselves and not knowing what to do with it, and their leader not available because they thought, if I go to Jarrod, why would I go to him? He doesn't feel those things. He'll just flip it as fast as humanly possible. And that really hurt me because, and again, it stemmed back through me not wanting to feel those negative emotions from those experiences I had earlier in my childhood. And the easiest way to move away from them was to try to see the positive, always look on the positive side of it. So I do value positivity. It's still in my life and plays an important role. One thing I used to say a lot, and I'm kind of debunk this for myself, but I used to live by this, being like, I'm a completely logical person. My brain does not think negatively. It's not logical because to me, negativity, it hurts you, it hurts anyone you're around. So being a logical person, my brain doesn't compute negativity. I used that for a long, long time in my life. And now I do have a hard time, I think, looking at something negative and seeing it as negative. But the word negative so strong. I think what I was saying is I don't, I don't compute any emotions that are fear, stress, and those things because I didn't want to feel them. And I live by that. I tell my people, my wife, negativity doesn't make sense to me. It hurts you, it hurts everybody else. And again, that was a wall I was putting up for no one to come in and no one to share. And that was a challenge too. So the first thing I want to do is make a distinction because this was an important shift for me. Because as I was doing this growth and everything, this realization happened to me, this how much of a toxic positivity and how I was blocking people in my life and not making people feel safe in my relationships and my career. They were struggling because of this. So when I started really looking into this, to me, there was a distinction between positivity and optimism because I like to feel back to my previous episode. I want to feel that the things that I'm doing, I have agency that I can do something about, right? When I have to hope or wait or the outside world has that influence on me, I didn't like that experience because I've been playing that victim for so long. So I needed to find something that allowed me kind of the choice to make that I could do that. So positivity and optimism. I felt I was able to make a distinction for myself and how I looked at those two. And that's why I like to say positivity is a strategy. Optimism, let's start there. Optimism to me is a hope that things will get better, a hope that the relationship, a situation, the future will be better. It feels like it's a lack of action. It's just saying, I hope it gets better. What determines if it gets better? Something has to happen externally again. So you're at the kind of privy again of the external situation. So I didn't want to have to sit there and hope and just sit around. It didn't feel action oriented to me to think about optimism. Positivity, the way I looked at it was an attitude, it was an approach. It was not saying externally bad things wouldn't happen, but positivity allowed me to take an experience in, feel those emotions, but then decide what I do next, how I wanted to tell that story. What did I want to tell myself about that situation, interaction? And then I get to take the next action. That's the cool thing is any experience that comes in, you have the next choice what to do next. The biggest piece of that is what I always call the gap between external stimulus and response or reaction. There's a difference there too, right? Reaction is like right when something happens, it's what initially comes to you in your mind and your feeling and you react to it. I like the word respond. I'm a big language person, so respond is better. Respond to me is I've had time to process. I created a gap between external stimulus. I'm able to process, understand, make my own decision, tell my own story, and then make a response. And that's what positivity. I wanted to positively respond to every experience. It was a strategy, meaning it was my choice to make. Where again, back to optimism, optimism was a hope that things would get better. And to me, it was like I had to sit around and just hope and have an optimistic lens all the time. So that's my first distinction with positivity and optimism. I think that's an important one to look at. So thinking this way, it really helped me. The first thing I had to do, back to the previous episode, was to create that gap and allow those negative emotions of others or of myself to enter in. So instead of just flipping everything to a positive really, really quickly, I would allow those. I think it's important to feel and understand why you're feeling certain things. So that was a challenge for me. When an experience would happen and these maybe tough emotions would come up, I just push them down and try to go as positive as fast as possible. I had to learn and be okay and be very uncomfortable with feeling those negative emotions because what I needed to do is learn what brought those things up. Two things: learn what experience happened that triggered that emotion, but then be aware of my thinking around that and what story I was telling myself that was kind of reinforcing that negative experience. I need to understand where this was coming from, right? Most of these tougher emotions like fear, anxiety, stress, they're already in our body because of things from our past, childhood, catastrophic events, a lot of different things. These emotions store in our body, and then new things that happen in life trigger that emotion to come up. Something externally happened that triggered and was similar to that experience or triggered that emotion to come back up and for you to feel that. So the only way for me to understand where emotions came from, I needed to pause and I needed to feel them, understand what the situation was externally, where my thinking went, and that was the gap I was creating between external stimulus before I chose to respond, right? So then I could hear the story and go, oh, as I said, debate that story, challenge it, maybe start a new one with a positive lens to it and understanding that. So that really helped me. It took a while. It's still something I work on. I can see myself sometimes still being a little toxic positivity, but also think about that as a leader. I think one of the most important qualities of a leader is emotional intelligence. There's been tons of studies by Gallup that researching you can really determine the effectiveness of a leader, not through IQ, but through EQ and the first step of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So it was really challenging for me to be a great leader in work and in my family if I had a lack of self-awareness, but also I had zero empathy. I had no empathy for the way people were feeling because I wasn't allowing myself to feel those emotions. So how could I relate? It's hard to relate to somebody who has those emotions and you're not allowing yourselves to feel those emotions. So there's no way for you to relate to that person. And that's what I think connects us all as humans. And there's where compassion and empathy, we don't all have the same life, the same background, or have the same experiences, but we feel the same emotions. We all know what stress and fear and doubt and judgment and anxiety feel like. So that's what relates us as human beings. So we can be empathetic and compassionate to everybody because everybody goes and feels those things. Different things trigger it, but that doesn't matter what triggers that feeling. What makes us all human and what connects us as human beings is we have the same emotions and we feel all the same emotions, and that's how we relate to one another. So to be empathetic or compassionate, you have to allow yourself to feel those feelings, and it's tough and uncomfortable. Especially as males, I think in this world, being raised where we're tough, we're hardcore, we're not vulnerable, we're not sensitive, that we don't feel these things, we don't talk about these things. I think there's been such great progress in this area. There's so many great thought leaders in this and so much out there about men sharing vulnerability. But I think it's still a challenge for a lot of people. We're supposed to be strong and tough and not feel these things. So I think it allows a lot of us to block some of those emotions, not know how to understand them, not know how to cope with them, not having a place to go to them or a place to share them because that makes us weak. We share with our spouse, we share with our team, we share with others, our friends. It makes us look weak. So we bottle it up, most of the time push it away, don't know what to do with them. And then it's really hard for us to be there for others who are feeling those, especially those in our lives, because we're not experiencing them ourselves. So this has been huge for me for myself to be able to understand where emotions for me are coming from, especially for the challenging ones. That has been really, really important because then I can work through and know when certain situations will bring this up, but also, as I said, change the story and the beliefs behind there because until I could feel that emotion, understand where my brain went, what my brain was thinking and what I was saying to myself, I could go, oh, that's interesting why I would say that story. What if I changed it? What if I said something different? It didn't just go away, right? Those stuff would still trigger me. Even today, there's moments of that where certain situations will bring those emotions and I'm fully aware and it's still tough to move past it, but I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. So the way I look at positivity as a strategy now is how I finish every experience. So something happens externally that triggers something in me that makes me feel these emotions. I don't push them away anymore. I really try to sit with them and understand. A lot of times it's hard in the moment. I'm still a processor. So sometimes I'll go back in a meditation or at night and go back to that experience and understand what I was feeling because I'm still struggle with in the moment to notice a feeling coming on and be able to process it. It takes me a little bit of time. I try to, but it's all about doing that processing again, what the feeling was, what's coming up in my head, and then ending with the choice I want to make. Do I want to keep that story the same, or do I want to change it and take action, right, and move forward? So that's what positivity is a strategy. It's a strategy in every experience in my life that I'm going to process, then respond the way I want to, which is with a positive mindset, because I truly believe that every experience is a good experience because it's an experience. Let me say again, every experience is a good experience because it's an experience. We have the option of everything that happens in our life, every experience, to learn from it. They're there for a reason. I think every experience is there to teach us something. The good ones, the challenging ones, the really freaking hard ones. There's always something to learn in there. Again, this is not to dismiss them and try to get to the learning as quick as possible. It is to process the emotions and feel them and understand. But then what can we take away? Right? I try to ask myself these three questions when a really challenging experience comes on. What is the gift? Right? After I felt the emotions, I've come down, I'm back to base. What's the gift? What can I learn from this gift? And how can I teach it to others? So what is the gift? What can I learn from this gift? And how can I teach it to others? Because I think if you give it back, it reinforces it. There's always a learning. We say this a lot, me and Nikki, our mess is our gift. That's the only thing that I have true expertise that makes me as an individual different than everybody else is what I have gone through and what I've experienced and what I've learned. I have to share that. That's my responsibility because that's the only thing I know that separates me from everybody else is my own experiences that are different from everybody else's and what I learned from them. So when something challenging happens, if I can really look at it as an opportunity to learn something for myself, but also to teach others, that's what I'm hoping to do with this podcast. That's my responsibility. I really feel that's my responsibility. So again, what is the gift? What can I learn from this gift? How can I teach it to others? I think that's a really powerful, it's not easy in the beginning. And for me, I usually did that at night. Once I processed everything and looked at it, I tried to write this down and it's still hard sometimes. It takes a while and a while and a while to really, can I make that shift and be like, this is ridiculous. There's no gift in this. And that's okay. It's going to be a process. But if you make it a habit and if you take every experience and be open, not judgmental as an observer, right? The easiest way for me to do that in the beginning was to imagine that was happening to somebody else and how would I observe that situation and what would I learn from that? That made it a little bit easier in the beginning as a true observer and try to separate it from myself because we self-judge ourselves, we play victim. So if I was able to apply that and pretend it was somebody else, that made it a little bit easier. And then over time, I was able to understand, okay, this is me. I'm going to pull away, understand, reflect, learn, and then respond, move forward, right? So I think that's my biggest takeaway for today is positivity is a strategy. And when I said at the beginning that every day is a good day because it's a day, I really believe that there's so much we can learn each and every day. And this isn't easy for me. I get frustrated, I get angry, all those things, but I really make sure to end my day intentionally with thinking through some challenging points in my day and understanding, okay, why did that come up for me? What happened? What was my thinking during that time? What can I learn from that experience for the future? What's the gift? And how can I pass that on and pass it forward for myself and for others? And I think if you can do that, it's going to, again, these things we do internally and these habits and ways we change ourselves, what happens is the outside world starts to reflect differently. As I said in the last podcast, your experiences and all these things around you, they'll look a little bit different. The only piece that you really have agency over is the ability to reflect, respond, learn, grow, and choose what's next for you and how you want to look at things. So positivity is a strategy. It is a choice that you get to make on every experience. It's not dismissing these tough emotions. It's not pushing them away. It is feeling them, reflecting on them, processing, understanding what came up from you, what you were thinking, and then how do you want to move on? And that's your choice. How do you want to look at that experience? Because how you perceive that experience will now reflect how you see the rest of the world around you. So make that choice. I encourage you to make that choice and try some of these habits. Thank you guys for listening today. I hope this message resonated with you. Please comment, share if this is something that you think someone in your life needs to hear. But I'd love for you, any other practices you have. And also, what did you think of the distinction between positivity and optimism? Appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining. Love doing this with you all. Have a great rest of your day.